This is Lainey Cameron, and I'm here with my co-host Paulette Stout on the Best of Book Marketing. And this is going to be, I think, a really helpful episode to a lot of authors. So we're going to talk about how to publish on a budget. And I was just looking back at our notes on various things we called this episode before how to publish on a budget. I think because I'm Scottish, I love the word cheap. I think I had at one point like how to do it on the cheap. And then I think we had how to publish without breaking the bank. But we went with how to publish on a budget because it's not necessarily always about the cheapest choice. It's about the smartest choice. And I think a lot of authors are strapped for cash and they're trying to make the right decisions. And one of the things we're going to talk about in this episode is, yes, there are places where you can absolutely like go with the free version. We encourage you to. And there are other places where we're like, let's think about this because there's a question of money versus time, quality. If you don't actually get the readers because you did something that was so cheap that they didn't really appreciate. So this is going to be a fun episode, I think. Paulette, any thoughts or comments from you before we kick off?
No, I think I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with, regardless of your publishing path, for sure. I mean, there's definitely costs involved in self-publishing, but there are also costs involved in just prepping to query. So I think the stuff that we're going to cover today will help people regardless of your publishing path.
Totally agree. And we'll try and differentiate. We try to talk about when things are different by publishing path because some things do differ. So before we get going into the meat of this whole topic of how to publish on a budget, why don't we do our regular personal updates? And I would love for you to go first, Paulette, because I know that you've got some really interesting news this month.
I know. I had notes for today, but then I was just in some groups. I decided to give Kindle Unlimited a try. And for those who know, that's the exclusive subscription program for people who read on Amazon. So I've been wide since the beginning. I've been a really proponent of publishing wherever people read, including libraries and all the retailers. But some of my ebooks specifically, and that's what this is about, ebooks, they weren't moving as much, and I'm just going to give it a test and see how it goes. So I'll report back and let everybody know how it goes. But I suspect that a lot of my readers are subscriber readers and they prefer not to outlay cash for books and read as part of their subscription. So we'll see how that goes. Beyond that, I just got my voluminous notes back from my editor on the fourth book in my series. So meeting with her on Monday to kind of wrangle through all of that. And I think it's a good reminder that when you get notes back from your editor, you don't have to agree with everything, but I unfortunately do. So
You and I, we were talking earlier this week about the idea that the happiest time in your book is right before you get those editor notes. When you believe it is so damn good and that editor is going to say, oh, Paulette, it's fabulous. You don't need to change anything. This happens to me every time. And then you get the notes and you're like, oh no, I have to go back and do all this work.
Yeah, I was like, when I got this note, I was trying to visualize it's like having a huge boulder in your living room, and you know that you have to move the boulder. And maybe if you like squat and you could roll it a little or something, but when you move the boulder, then you see, oh, I had a window, and oh, I have room for my chocolate fountain now, and all these fun things. So it always makes it better, but it's a lot of work to get there for sure.
And I'm going to say hi to Beth Cox, who I see is here live, which is fabulous. Hey, Beth. Beth has got a book, a fabulous book coming out. I actually have it on my Kindle. I get to read an early version. I haven't made it to it yet because I have a long list of early versions to read. But I know that Beth's book is coming out this year. So I'm excited to see that. It's women's fiction.
Awesome. And then one other quick thing, there's running a promotion, like a Christmas in July promotion where there's some free books and authors are getting together to help promote books. So if you go to my website, paulettestout.com, on the homepage, you can link over and check out if any of those free books are interesting to you. That is a co-marketing free thing on BookFunnel. So I guess those are the big things. I have something coming up on July 20th. I will be in Rhode Island, live selling books at a general store. Hopefully it goes well. You can check out that on my events page of the website. So I guess those are the big things.
Fun.
Lainey,
so last month I shared that it had been a really tough previous month. I was sick. My mom was sick. She broke her shoulder. We had family issues. It was all kinds of stuff going on. And I'm very happy to tell you that I am sitting here recording this right now, looking out the window in London. I made it to England for the big trip for my mom's 80th birthday party. It was touch and go for a while, but we made it. And that party was last weekend. And my health is so much better. And so life is looking much better than it was a month ago, which is fabulous. And I'm even back into working on my second book with more time to give to it now that I am settled here. I'm actually in a beautiful office that I have borrowed from my cousin-in-law. We're staying in their house in London. And I get to hang out with their dog. It's kind of fabulous. Anyway, I'm back to working on my second book, which is fabulous. And I just celebrated, and I love how we know these things because it comes up on social media. Facebook brought up a reminder, like just the other day, that it was 4 years since my debut launched. And I had kind of two reactions to that. Like the first reaction was like, yay, my goodness, it's been 4 years. And I've been so happy with how that book is done. It became a bestseller in feminist fiction. It won 15 awards. But more importantly, it kind of made me take a moment and think about the journey since the book came out, and just like the kindness and the resilience and the power of that community of writers and authors, and how I've experienced that over the last 4 years and been part of and been able to help with other writers. And it just gave me that moment of wanting to just say thank you to everybody who's been part of my journey. Whether I've helped you or you've helped me or we've just interacted on social media, like I just had this moment of absolute gratitude this week because I love this community. And I feel like it's not like other places, other industries. I've worked in tech and other industries, and what we have in the writing community is very, very special. And so I just kind of like wanted to take a moment to thank everybody. I even see Gail Priest on here, who we talked about her book in our first episode. So I also a fabulous supporter of other writers. So, and then the other thing it made me think of was I kind of had this moment of like, oh my goodness, it's been 4 years and I'm still working on my second book. And I had to kind of step back from that and ask myself, what's going on there? And why am I feeling both simultaneously grateful and happy and a little bit angsty about it? And I reminded myself that it all comes from comparison, right? Comparison is the thief of joy. And, you know, I don't need my book to come out, my first, my second, my third, my fourth on a timeline. Like, it's not that's not really what my journey is and what this means to me. And so it was a really good reminder that sometimes comparing to other authors, in this case, going, oh my goodness, since my debut came out, you know, Paulette's had 3 books come out or 4 books come out. It's not helpful. Like, that is really, truly not helpful. And so it was a good reminder for me to step back, step away from the fear, step away from the angst and say, like, what's really going on in my head? And is that really what you want, how you want to see the world? And I was like, no, that's not how I want to see the world. I am so fortunate that I'm not on a timeline, that I can bring this book out when it comes out. And I'm really grateful for that.
Yes, I love it. And I'm so, Lainey, we are also grateful for you in the author community here. Everybody who would be watching to this knows what an amazing, supportive, selfless person you are and how giving you are. So we are grateful for you, and we are ready whenever you are ready. We will be there for you when that book comes out, whether it's next year or it's 5 years from now. We will be there with our hands out waiting for your words. So you take all the time you need.
And I'll talk about this during our little break in the middle of the program, but I also have a really cool thing happening in September where I'm going to be giving a book marketing boot camp at the Retreat for Women's Fiction Writers in Albuquerque. So I'll share a little bit more about that when we get to the midpoint in the episode. So awesome. Let's get into it. Let's get into our content. So I had written down here, maybe we should start by talking about like what goes into publishing and marketing a book that takes money. Because if people aren't familiar and they're still getting their heads around kind of what's all the things I need to spend my money on, that might be just a good starting point to say, okay, let's start with publishing and then start with marketing and talk about, okay, what are the things that really cost money here? So do you want to take that one, Paulette, as kind of the indie queen here?
For sure. And I think that, you know, there's some of them might be familiar. So editing a book, which is getting someone's in, whether it's developmental editing, copy editing, all of that is money if you want to get someone to help you. But there are ways around that. We'll cover that later on. Formatting the book, you know, that's actually laying the words on the page with the margins and all that stuff. And if you want to add designs in and page breaks when the scenes change, all, you know, you can hire a formatter, you cannot. So we'll talk about that too. Proofreading, cover design, buying ISBN numbers, getting a copyright for your work, securing a Library of Congress control number. You know, all of those things can potentially be a place where you can spend money. So marketing, you want to take that one?
So on marketing, so on marketing, if I think about it in terms of my book marketing framework, there's things you do for social proof. And so by social proof, it's other people talking about your book, right? So, and you get to choose for a lot of those, whether you pay or don't pay, right? So some of these things like getting reviews from readers, you don't necessarily have to pay to do that. It could be work versus money. But you might want to do a book tour where someone organizes an influencer tour for you. There you're paying money, but you could also do it yourself. There you're working as opposed to paying the money because you're putting the time in. And in the awareness space, it's a little bit the same, right? Like you can use services, you can hire publicists, or you can do some of these things yourself and you do time over money, right? You're putting your own time into it instead. Social media is a little bit the same, right? You can do your own social media, or you can have someone help you with it. You can just, take your own photos. You don't have to pay for editing software or anything if you don't want to, or you can use software and you can use services and you can use apps and all kinds of things that you could pay money for. And so I think the awareness piece is on the marketing side where people do end up putting big bucks in it. And often, and we've talked about this in a past episode, being disappointed by the results in terms of sales. So, and then I think the piece that's almost impossible to avoid spending money on is if you want to do a sale and you want to promote that sale, right? Yeah, you could. And by a sale, I mean like you want to go after a book club or you want to do a discounted price and you want to put it in some of these newsletters that go out to readers. You could say, no, I'm just going to communicate through my social media and other people's newsletters, but you're not going to reach nearly as big an audience with your discounted price if you don't do some of the things that don't have to be cost a fortune, but some of these, email services that'll get it out to 100,000 readers or more. You're going to have a very different impact than just you trying to communicate on your social media, unless you happen to have 10 million followers, in which case, what are you doing? Listen to this. Come on as a guest. Tell us more about what you're doing. So in general, I think, that's the piece of the book marketing framework as I think about it. Book sales as in discounted pricing, where it's kind of impossible to avoid spending money if you want to do it right. Otherwise, you just discount your book and nobody knows about it. So I know we're going to talk first actually about this topic of time versus money, because I think it really is an equation of, in many of these things, you could do it yourself, but do you want to? And so tell me what your thoughts on time versus money, Paulette.
I think that there are a lot of places that new authors or new writers think that they should spend money in places where they shouldn't, and they don't always necessarily align them. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about some places where we think you could spend money and some places where you might want to do some of these things that we'll talk about in a few minutes in terms of where to save and where to spend. So I think for sure one of the places people spending is on advanced reader teams. There are platforms you can buy to get, advanced reader reviews. Other places are book tours, bookstore outreach, media and podcast interviews and things like that. You can save hundreds or even thousands of dollars by doing that stuff yourself.
By platforms, for those who are not familiar, Paulette, I think you mean, for example, more on the DIY side, BookFunnel. If you were to distribute your book through BookFunnel and you were to send the BookFunnel link to people, more on the more paid side, like NetGalley, if you wanted to pay to have your book up on NetGalley and to get it out to the readers on NetGalley or Book Sirens or one of those other services.
Yes, exactly. Book Sirens, NetGalley, all those places. They can be expensive if you buy them separately, but you can also go online and foster community and build your own advanced reader teams to try to get some of those early reviews, and that's that social proof you talked about. So for instance,
and a key tip, let me give it a key tip here for NetGalley before I forget, because I've actually heard authors go sign up for NetGalley as a NetGalley member. Unless you're publishing tons of books, do not go sign up for NetGalley separately yourself. It's very expensive. Enter a co-op, and there are lots of co-ops out there where you can get, like, for $50, you can be on for a month. Victory Editing does one. A lot of small publishers give you access through them to what's the equivalent of a co-op. So, don't be spending more than $50 or max $100 to put your book on NetGalley. You do not need to spend like $800 or $1,000. I have seen authors do this. They sign up for an annual subscription to NetGalley with one book. Like, don't do it. You don't need to spend that money. It's ridiculous.
No, don't do that. And so, so that's one thing. And the other place is another place with time versus money is with web design. And I think that when, people we use websites every day, and some people, it's a place that feels really scary. So the instinct is I can't do a website myself. I need to hire somebody. That is definitely a place where investing the time to kind of learn a platform. They're so easy. If you can click and slide a mouse, then you can build a website. So there are lots of, whether it's Squarespace or Wix, there's lots of them out there where you can basically click and slide and have a website up really quickly. So one place that don't advise new authors to dabble is WordPress. And it's not that WordPress is too complicated to learn, because it's not. It's that it's too complicated to maintain. WordPress is what's called an open source platform, which is that it's built across a worldwide community of developers and everybody makes stuff and you put it in these marketplaces. But all those things are called plugins. They have little ways to do things, and those all need to be updated on a regular basis. And sometimes you use a plugin, and then that developer is like, "Yeah, I want to go find myself," and they stop updating that plugin, and then you try to do it, and it can really break your website. So just don't recommend, whether you hire someone or you do it yourself. Just stay away from WordPress, y'all.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm actually, in my old life, before I was an author, I was doing tech marketing, and I worked for the company that did PHP, that was the open source company that did the language that WordPress is based on. So I am very familiar with WordPress, and I know how to use it, and I choose not to. I know exactly how to use WordPress inside and out, and I use Squarespace because I don't want to waste my time with updates of plugins on an app whoa, this is not where I should be spending my time. I should be writing. And so I could not agree more.
Yeah, for sure. So that was one thing. The other place is, on cover design. Now, covers, you can get expensive covers, you can get affordable covers. Definitely recommend that is one place where you would want to spend money, because cover designers they're not just good at graphic design. They also understand the conventions of books, and they understand that you don't necessarily want to do a red cover with big block letters on a cozy, and you don't want to do black on a romance, so unless it's like a dark romance, so colors mean things, fonts mean things, placement mean things. There are optimal ways to organize your cover to optimize book sales in an online space. So those are things you miss out on when you do a DIY cover. So can you do a DIY cover that's passable? For sure. Is that a spot where you might want to invest if you're not, pretty skilled with, Canva or some kind of online platform like, InDesign or something like that? Maybe.
I completely agree. I see authors skimp on the cover, and generally it is they try to DIY as opposed to hiring a professional designer. They skimp on the cover, and they don't realize that affects everything else. If your cover isn't right, and we talked about this in the last episode, if your basics aren't right? If your cover isn't right, any money you go spend on advertising is probably wasted, because your cover is turning people off because it's not in genre. It doesn't say quality book. Like, if your cover does not say quality book in the genre it was supposed to be in, everything else you spend money on is pretty much, you said it last month, throwing money down the sewer, right? And yes. So the one thing I do see people do on their cover that they don't need to do is people get so wrapped up in their unique universe and their characters, and they want original artwork. And they're like, oh no, my character looks like this, and this particular object is in the book, and this particular thing. So what I really need is someone to go do a photo shoot, an original artwork or original illustration for my book. And honestly, you don't. That is you just getting a little too pristine about your book, and it needs to be perfect. And so long as your genre looks professional, so long as the fonts are right and it's in genre, it really doesn't matter if it's exactly the color of hair or the hairstyle that the main character had, or the object that turns up halfway through the book is portrayed in the correct way. It is not important. And so I think people get a little caught up in that, and they end up escalating their costs on the cover because they want this thing that is very unique and very specific to the vision in their head, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so that's for sure. So cover design is one place where it's probably a good place for you to invest. You don't have to spend a lot of money on a cover, but you can benefit from the skills of even pre-made covers by a professional designer that is, knows your genre. Right. And it also, there's places where time is beneficial. So if you are formatting, is a place where a lot of people, it feels scary to format a book, but that's definitely a place where spending the time and learning the programs, there's two main ones, there's Atticus and there's Vellum. Spending the time to learn that is really going to save you a lot later when you don't have to pay for changes, or you don't have to wait. And in a lot of our business, sometimes time is money. So formatting is a place where I would not spend money. In terms of, hiring someone, cover design is definitely one where I think you would. And then I guess the next, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was thinking to move on to the next category, unless you have anything else there, Lainey.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on this point you made on kind of flexibility if you do it yourself versus if you hire someone. So, the thing is, if you hire a cover designer, and we do recommend that, if you hire a cover designer, even if it's a pre-made cover, you hire a cover designer, then you do need to work with them when you need new versions, right? So it's not going to be as fast as if you did it yourself. It's not going to be as, it's going to be better, but it's probably not going to be as fast. And also on the website side, I think that's where it plays out in the positive way if you do your own website on Squarespace or Wix. And I'm not saying never hire someone. There's some great companies out there. You can hire someone if you want to do that. It tends to be expensive. I've seen people hire people to do their website, and it's been well over $1,000 to get a website done. Something that you could have done yourself for, a much tinier amount of money with Squarespace or Wix. But what you can't do once you hire someone, or you need to really think about, is, so I've got a new event coming up and I want to put it on my event page. Am I going to have to go back to my designer every single time I need to change something on my website? You do not want that. That's partly why I really recommend doing something where you own it and it's easy and you can learn how to use the platform, because the flexibility, right? Once you have a new promo, Paulette's got this Christmas in July coming out, you can slap it up on her website like that in a heartbeat. You don't have to wait for someone else to do the work before you can make a tiny tweak. So that's also a consideration when it comes to kind of, do I do it, time versus money, is not just the original cost, but each time you need a change, how is that going to work?
Yeah, it's just not scalable and sustainable. So for sure, a website is something where roll up your sleeves, learn the program, and potentially you can trade skills with someone else, which is a little segue into our next topic of, how do you save money in some of these areas? If you have expertise in an area and someone else has expertise in another area, then trading skills can be a really amazing way to save money. And that applies to website design. It applies to editing. It applies to proofreading, learning ads, book covers. You can definitely save money by pairing up with someone who has skills or professional experience in an area that you don't.
Yeah, and like in indie world, some people have become amazing at doing videos and, using Canva to do promotional videos for books, for example. Other people have gotten really good at using Atticus to do formatting, right? Like that's a really interesting trade. And so, yeah, I think these trade ideas are really valuable. I help a lot of authors with their social media, but I get so much help back in return, right? I'm going to get beta readers, I'm going to get early readers, I'm going to get all kinds of things out of that. And so, yeah, I think that could be really valuable. And I'm really interested in, actually, I noticed that Beth Cox put a comment in here that you might have have feedback on, Paulette. Beth said that she's using Draft to Digital to distribute her book, and that lets her format her book because Draft to Digital offers formatting capabilities. Is that something you've heard much about on the indie side?
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of the different retailers have ways to format books. I think that there's even some stuff in Amazon KDP has something, and for sure Draft to Digital has. So that's another way to format books. I believe you just kind of have it in Word, and then you can upload it, and then you can use their formatting tools. So that's a place where you can use the platforms, and for free, you can get some formatting done there. A lot of the platforms also give you ISBN numbers, but that is a place where I advise you to buy and spend money, because if you get an ISBN from a retailer for free, you can only use it on that retailer. So you can't use a free ISBN from Draft to Digital, for instance, and use that same book number on Amazon. And it starts to get complicated where you have one book with multiple ISBN numbers, and it starts to get a little bit confusing. So ISBNs is definitely a place where I recommend that you put a little bit of money in and buy your own, and then you can have one ISBN per format for all your books wherever you sell them.
That's a big gotcha. Yeah, thanks for pointing that one out. Yeah. And trading skills, like if someone covers is a hard one, right? Covers generally does cost money, and it's a hard one because you might have a friend who's a whiz on Canva, but like we were saying, that doesn't mean they're good at book covers, right? I'm damn good on Canva. You are, Paulette, too. We can whip up something on Canva in like 2 minutes flat, but it doesn't mean I would take on doing a book cover in Canva, because that's a different skill. That's a design skill versus, I would say, like a platform software skill, if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, for sure. I just, and there's, everyone's got an opinion. So, these are our opinions, folks, but I definitely feel like book covers is a place where it's worth spending some money. And there are great places. I don't want to, 100 covers is one place. My cover designer does a lot of fantasy, so she charges a little bit more, but it's a place where you can benefit greatly, because you basically have like 2 seconds in an online space, maybe even less than 2 seconds to catch someone's eye when they're scrolling looking for a book. And if your cover looks like it, you kind of DIY'd it in your garage, they're going to feel like the quality and the content of your storytelling is going to match the quality of your cover. So, You have
Yeah.
those 2
I've
seconds,
I've
and it's a
turned
place where
down
you can.
books on the Best of Women's Fiction podcast because of the covers. Like, I'll be honest, even if the description read well, the cover looked low quality, I've turned books down for that reason. So yeah. Um, Another example I've seen on the trading, and this one's a bit more unusual. I've actually seen once, I've seen someone who was doing some VA work on the side, virtual assistant work on the side, doing media outreach for another author. I've actually seen people trade that. Actually, I did a little bit of this myself, where a friend who's an author did my media outreach for me. Which you might think like, wow, you mean they're basically a publicist? No, you write the copy for the outreach that they're going to do, but they manage the communication. And it's kind of an interesting one to trade because none of us like getting rejected, right? We don't like, reaching out to media and you just get silence and nothing happens. And so outsourcing that to a friend who can do it for you, and then even just a swap word, they do it for you and you do it for them, is kind of interesting, right? Because it takes you out of that rejection world and you get someone else to do the outreach for you. So just a thought, like a lot of these things that people think have to be done by publicists do not have to be done by publicists. You can reach out to local media, you can reach out to podcasts. You do not have to have a professional publicist. Now, there's some advantages to publicists, but they can be insanely expensive. So that's an example where kind of trading skills, maybe you can get some of that done with a trade with a friend.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely, if you do that, I definitely encourage you in the materials that you supply to whoever you're trading skills with, write those and approach people so they know that you know who they are. Because I know that Lainey, as someone who has had a podcast for a long time, you can tell when someone knows who you are and who you don't are. And if you have like a one pitch that you use across for every podcast, they can tell in like 2 seconds that you don't listen to their podcast. You're asking for an interview on a podcast that doesn't do interviews. That's
Right.
like a really easy tell, so you don't need like Sherlock Holmes for that one. So if
no
you are
bulk
going
emails.
to,
And the same goes for most media, right? Like most media don't want you approaching them, especially like think about local TV. Local TV doesn't want to be approached with a bulk email. They want to know that you look to what segment they have. They have a particular segment this fits, and you're proposing a particular topic for that segment. Yeah. But again, that research can be you or it could be someone else. That could be a trade that someone else is doing that for you.
Ooh, that I love. That idea I love.
So let's talk about free, because I noticed also that Beth mentioned in the comments that she used my advice and used Canva for her website, which is really interesting. Canva, I'm not quite sure if you have to be on the pro version just to put it live, but Canva actually lets you put up a website as part of using Canva, and you can point your domain name at it. Now, it has some pros and cons, but if you're already using Canva, it's effectively no extra cost. So let's talk about some of these free versions and what we can do with some of the free stuff out there.
Yeah, there are a lot of free things. BookFunnel has a free, Canva has a free level. Some, coaches and things and experts that you'll see on podcasts, when you look them up, a lot of times they'll have like free time, like a free half-hour session. And you don't want to abuse them, obviously, but there are lots of ways, especially with software platforms. I think Kindlepreneur also has a free version. So there's lots of free versions. So if there's a tool for everything when you're looking to publish a book, from editing to publishing to distributing and formatting and design. There's lots of things. BookBrush is one, but there's lots of things you can do on Canva that you can maybe skip the BookBrush and do it on Canva. So, there's different ways to save money and choose where you spend your money. So optimizing free is a great way, especially when it comes to courses. There's lots of folks that have free courses that introduce something, and sometimes that's enough. I saw a free Kindlepreneur course on Amazon ads that was shared in a Facebook post with me by Pam Kelly. I love Pam Kelly. And sometimes that's enough to then not have to go pay hundreds of dollars for another course. So optimizing
like
free is a great way
free
to start.
Amazon ads challenge. That's one that I've recommended to people a lot, right? It's a 5-day free challenge with Brian Cohen and team. And yeah, you get a lot of value out of that free version. You don't have to go do the expensive paid course, right? You can, but you don't have to. I think that's a really good example. And also, like a lot of coaches, a lot of social media coaches do free versions of like training. And even me, I have a list where you can join my book marketing list, and I do a bunch of free webinars, right? And I do that because I'm wanting to build my brand and get people on my list and on the list of the speakers so that we can tell you more about what other offerings we have. But, I don't care. Like if you come on that list and all you ever do is watch free webinars, great, I'm helping you. And so I think like there's a lot of people who are in the business of offering free content and free webinars, and it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to move forward and get their course and buy their expensive thing. You might not be ready. It might not be a fit for you. Those people expect that a very small percentage of the people that they offer value to for free will buy the paid version. So don't ever feel bad about maximizing use of the free versions, including my own stuff. Use it all. Come get my book marketing framework. Like, I love helping. Like, I don't, you know, I don't do that because I expect that every person is going to buy something. Quite the opposite. It's kind of the way to help with knowing everything. Everybody can't afford everything.
Yeah. And I think that another thing to do is, if you do purchase a course, use the course. I describe myself a little bit as like a course hoarder. You know, I'll see, oh, that looks really good, and you know, I want to know that. So then I go out, I buy the course, and then I don't use it, and then I buy another course. So I've currently cut myself off for buying courses until I use the ones I paid for already. So if you were like me and you're just like interested in learning, but don't necessarily always have the time to learn, then really consider whether you need to click that button and buy the next course, because you may already have one in your inbox that you haven't accessed yet.
Yes. My tip on that, because I am also a course hoarder, I am guilty as charged. I am awful at this. I started actually trying to create a document of all the courses I've bought and haven't taken, because I've got to the point that I don't even know the ones I didn't do. It's ridiculous. Like, I need to stop buying courses. And one of the things that might help people is if you do a free webinar and at the end they're saying like, and now buy the course, give yourself 24 hours, because they are incented to get you to buy right then. They're going to give you some bonus if you buy right now. Give it some time. Don't go buy it right now. Give it some time. Give it the day and buy it the next day, because that will like make you stop and think, do I really have time to do this? Because it's really easy to buy courses and not have time. And it's like the value is there in the course, but it's only there if you could put the time into it, and you may not have the time to do it right now.
Yeah, that's 100%. Those are basically at the end of a course. It's kind of like you're at the checkout lane in the grocery store, and there's all that stuff, the end caps, where it's just easy to grab it then. But do you need it? Yeah, maybe not. So give yourself some time on the courses too. So I think it's our sponsor segment now, huh?
Yay, sponsor segment. Okay, so first off, we'll just mention that we are open to having a sponsor for the podcast. We mentioned this last month. It's got to be someone who offers products and services to writers that we trust and believe in. We're not going to put anyone who's a scam on our podcast. But if that might be interesting to you, it's a great deal, because you will show up in all the back episodes as new readers or new listeners go and listen their way through the catalog, which they are already. We're noticing that people are coming to each episode and listening through the previous ones. So it's an amazing opportunity to be a sponsor during our very first year. This is only episode 3. So I'll just stop there. And Paulette, did you have anything you wanted to highlight in our sponsor segment this week?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely do author coaching. You can find that on my website, but we don't often talk about our own books. So I just wanted to do a little pitch for my books. You know, I write fast-paced contemporary women's fiction. I touch on a lot of social issues that a lot of places don't. And I kind of like to think that my books give you an experience where you can think and you can feel and you get it all wrapped up together. So if you're interested in my books, you can look at my website, paulettestout.com/buy books. They are Love Only Better, What We Never Say, What Eyes Can't See, and all right now on pre-order is What We Give Away.
Nice. And they're all fabulous. And I've read them all, I think. I've read every single one.
Yes, you have it.
Maybe not your pre-book, actually, now I think about it. The one that came before the series might be the one I haven't. I need to go read it now. And they're fabulous. I love them so much. And I'm actually not going to talk about a book, but I will tell you that my one book that is out that we mentioned earlier is fun feminist fiction. It's based in Silicon Valley. It's the story of a wife and a mistress who meet across the negotiating table, fast-paced. People have a lot of fun with it. But what I want to spend my time on is talking about what I'm doing in September, because if you are looking for an event as a writer to go to this year and you're thinking you want to build community, I thoroughly recommend the retreats from Women's Fiction Writers Association. That is actually how Paulette and I met. We're both longtime multi-year members. And I am so thrilled that I am going to be teaching in Albuquerque in the retreat in September. I'm going to be teaching a 3-hour book marketing boot camp. So if you come to the Albuquerque retreat, not only do you meet people, not only do you get to hang out on the patio in a beautiful environment and write and have fun, and you have this amazing set of morning sessions from Angela Ackerman, who is going to be talking about character development and how to use backstory and emotional wounds to really develop the backstory of your character. So it's pretty fabulous. And she is going to be teaching that during the morning sessions. But not only do you get that, but on the Saturday afternoon, included in your registration fee, I will be doing this 3-hour session on book marketing. which, I charge a lot of money for my 12-week class. And so this is actually kind of fun that I'm going to be taking a big chunk of that, or a small piece of that, depending on how you see it. It's 3 hours. There's a limit to what I can do in 3 hours, but I'm going to be going into some really good stuff about what to do before your book comes out, what to do after your book comes out, how to focus on the key parts. I'll be taking open Q&A as well. It's going to be really fun. If you have opinions on topics I must cover, let me know, because I'm putting the curriculum for that 3-hour boot camp together right now. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And if you're still kind of on the fence about, I want to go to something this year as a writer, this might be a good one to consider. And also we can have a drink together at the bar. And how cool would that be?
Yes, for sure. Awesome. Now we're going to move on to the next topic of the author platform on the cheap. You want to take us there, Lainey?
Yeah, and it's kind of fun that Beth is here listening, because Beth Cox took my 12 weeks to book launch success class. And one of the things we talked about is how to do author platform without spending a ton of money. So when I think of author platform, I think of, first off, your website, having a web presence, okay? Secondly, your email, having the ability for people to email you and for you to email them back. And third, your author newsletter, which is not quite the same as your email, because generally people use a platform for their author newsletter. You don't want to use Gmail and have a list of 200 people and send emails out of Gmail to 200 people. You'll get closed down pretty fast. You'll be flagged as spam, bad news, okay? So generally you need those 3 parts: your platform for email, you need your email address, right? Which may or may not be a domain name email address, and you need your website. And so Beth and I had kind of some fun going through this and asking ourselves, okay, so there's stuff that people say you need, right? If you want the primo version, you're going to want your domain name email. So I'm going to want to be Lainey@LaineyCameron.com or info@LaineyCameron.com or whatever it is, right? And you're going to want a really nice website that has a lot of capabilities. And maybe you'll go with something like Squarespace, or Wix is what we would recommend. Or maybe you have someone build it for you. And you're going to want some kind of mail platform. So it might be like MailChimp, MailerLite. If you're getting really sophisticated, something like ConvertKit. But we actually stepped back and had this conversation on, okay, but what if you didn't want to spend a lot of money? What if you're still not out yet? Like, what if your book isn't out for 2 years and you don't want to be spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars every year on this? What is the least you could get away with that would still work? And I had a lot of fun thinking about this. And actually, I'm going to create a download for you that gives you a little bit of a view of this and says, like, here's your good, better, best for author platform when you're thinking about how much things cost. But if you wanted to go on the low end of this, I worked out that you could have an author platform for $20 a year. And the $20 is the cost of your domain name. Because I do think you want to have your domain name, whether or not you go live with it right now. You want to have it so that someday when you are ready to have a bigger, better website, you have LaineyCameron.com or PauletteStout.com or PauletteStoutAuthor.com, depending on where you are with getting your domain name. But you know what? You could have a Substack instead of having a website, especially if your book's not out yet. Why not go with a Substack? And you can choose whether or not to put your Substack at your domain name or just to make it substack.com/LaineyCameron, which I do not yet have, by the way. One day, maybe. But if you have a
don't
Substack,
go steal Lainey's name, though. Don't go steal Lainey's name. Like, that's no bueno.
I think I have the name. I just don't. I always go grab my name
on
good. Platform.
Okay, good.
Oh, always. I'm on many platforms.
Grab your name, folks. Yes, domain name.
I don't have a presence. Like, there's nothing to see. Nothing to see there. Move along. One day, maybe it's going to be where I actually talk about book marketing, but not yet. Which is a good example of don't do stuff just because everybody says it's a good idea. Use your own time where you're ready and when you're ready. So you could have a Substack, though, as an author, and you talk about what matters to you, and you talk to your readers, and you own your mail list, right? On Substack, you own your list, and you don't really need a separate website. You're not even out yet. Your book's coming out in a year or two. You know what? Just have a Substack. If you want to pay a tiny bit extra, you can have the Substack at your domain name. And then in terms of email, you don't need an email platform because Substack's doing it for you and you own your list. And then in terms of your email address itself, you know what? Maybe you don't need a domain name email yet. I've actually got LaineyCameronAuthor@gmail.com in addition to Lainey@LaineyCameron.com. And I have that for a different reason, which is if ever my main account gets flagged in spam, I can use my backup account to get to people like giveaway readers and stuff if it's not getting through. But you know what? LaineyCameronAuthor@gmail.com. It might not be the most professional email address you could ever have, but it's good enough, especially if you're just emailing agents. Like, why do you need a domain name email? I would argue that it's nice to have, not a must-have. So in that scenario, you basically built a whole author platform for $20 using Gmail, using Substack, and with a domain name. What do you think, Paulette?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that's, that minimum viable product is kind of what you're going for in some cases. Because I think sometimes when people are working, especially if you're early in your author career, you don't necessarily know if this is going to be a thing. Like maybe you just do 1 or 2 books and that's it. Maybe you're just doing a book and you mostly just kind of want your family to read it. And it's all about your goals. And you may not always know what you want to do and how far you're going to take it. So starting with that minimum viable product and spending the minimum amount of money possible is definitely a good choice for people who are kind of just dipping their toe in and they don't really know how far they're going to go with it. On the other end of the spectrum, this might be for some people. You might want to spend money on the email, but maybe you don't want to spend money on the website. So, you can mix and match all of these strategies that we're talking about today. You don't necessarily have to only do one way, because it's up to you. You're an agency. But that's a really great choice in terms of, not getting the email and not necessarily spending a lot of money on the website right away.
Yeah, and Beth, who's watching, actually confirmed that if you're already paying for Canva, and you don't have to, you can use the free version, but if you're already paying for Canva Pro, which has some advantages, then you can use that for your website. So you don't have to pay any more to have a website. You can just use Canva Pro and you can point your domain name at that. So that's another way that you could potentially do a website without adding a ton of more cost. So again, there's a download on the website. Check it out. I'm actually going to do kind of a good, better, best. And I'll also share in that download what Paulette and I use in case you're interested to know what platforms we have chosen to use over time.
Yes, for sure. So great. So that's kind of a platform spot. Another place that we think you can save money is in swapping audiences. So even if you're early on, you're building community, you're finding places. And like when I first got started, I was in my neighborhood had a Yahoo group, and I would go in there and do things and say, hey, so there's ways to kind of build your audience really cheaply, just through friends, through family, through your work. Yeah, the download will be great, Beth, for sure. But in terms of swapping audiences, once you have a little audience, even if it's meager, everyone's got to start someplace. Swapping those with other people through newsletter swaps, through posting on each other's social platforms, or sharing blog interviews, swapping blog interviews. I've known lots of people who have a blog and they offer their website as a place and then they promote it. So your own blog is a free place to share your thoughts, and then you can promote that on social, and that's all free. Some places have cut back on it, but you can also do a feed of your blog in other places through RSS feeds. They're still somewhere around. You can still get that on your Goodreads page. You can have your blog feed and have that go onto your Goodreads page, and that's all free. So that's, swapping audiences is a place you can go, and you can arrange that and then get going really quickly.
And I've seen quite a few authors recently join an initiative of Paulette that you and I started in the women's fiction space, which is the Women's Fiction Co-op. So there is actually a Facebook group specifically for women's fiction, published women's fiction authors to swap and to actually kind of create collaborative opportunities, co-opportunities, not just newsletter swaps, but anything like giveaways or anything that you might want to do together. So if that's something you're interested in, just reach out, let us know. There's an application form. You do need to be published in women's fiction, but I'm really happy that group's now got well over 100 members, and it's pretty active, and it just started in January this year. So I feel like, and I got to credit Laura Drake, whose entire idea this was to start with. And Laura came to me and said, do you think we could do something like this? Is it worth doing? And I was like, yes, it's a brilliant idea. Let's make it happen. And then we brought in Paulette. And so it's up and running. And if people are interested, we'll put a link to where you can learn more. And how you can find out more information. That's definitely a kind of a forum to enable those kind of swaps, right? Because the thing can be you don't know who to offer it to, or you don't feel as connected. And so we wanted to kind of open that up in terms of it shouldn't be about everybody knowing, only the people in the know have access to those opportunities. It's nice to be part of a group where maybe you don't know as many people yet, but you can put something out there and do something with other authors.
Yeah, for sure. Another great place to find author swaps is on BookFunnel, and there is a free version of BookFunnel as well. So you don't only have to have the paid version of BookFunnel. The author swap feature, I'm not sure if that's on the free or paid or not, but that's another forum where you can find someone who maybe has a like book, like audience to yours, and plan something on an ongoing basis to do those. I mean, the Christmas in July promotion that I talked about earlier in the show, I organize that for free, and that's for other people to kind of take advantage of that as well. So swapping audiences is a great way to get your name out there for free.
another example of like, there are companies that will do that for money, right? So like Book Sweeps will do like a giveaway with multiple authors in it, or Universal by Design. Melissa at Universal Design does this, but you know, you can go put it together on Book Sweeps by yourself with other authors as well. So if you're the one to take the initiative, maybe you can do it at a lot less cost than paying someone to pull the authors together. So it's not that one is right or wrong. It's like putting in money versus time. Oh, I lost your audio, Paulette.
Because I was on mute. Yeah, it's also about like choosing where you want to spend your money for sure. So, and I think that the next topic we wanted to talk about was, you know, putting yourself out there. And what we mean by that is, you know, there are opportunities that can be had if you're willing to spend the time and putting it together, to organizing it, to facilitating things. You know, things like newsletter swaps, things like if you want to do an anthology, or you want to organize a giveaway, or you want to organize, you know, even things that, you know, if there's a holiday coming up and you want to do kind of like a themed thing, whether it's like Sexual Awareness Month and you have lots of authors together who have maybe touched on that topic in their books, or it's, you know, a holiday, or it's some other theme. So just if you are willing to put in the time to pull it together and to find participants, you can sometimes organize, you know, great projects that deliver for everyone, just because you're willing to be step up and put yourself out there to be the organizer.
Yeah, like I did one of these related to the Best of Women's Fiction podcast. I did one of these where I reached out to all of the people I'd had on guests on as guests on the podcast in the past, and we put together, like, it was, I think it was around Christmas time. We put together like holidays. We put together like a big giveaway with multiple authors' audiobooks in it, because I was trying to target getting my audiobook out, and so I wanted to do something in the audiobook space. And so I reached out to other authors and said, "Hey, do you want to do something where you offer an audiobook?" And I liked that because it's not historically or traditionally what you see people do. Often it's an ebook that you get for free, or a paperback. And so in that case, I asked other authors, and we put together something where the reader won multiple audiobooks at once. And so not only was that a little bit more unique and more interesting to the readers, the listeners, but it was something I could do because I had previously worked on this podcast, because I had this network of authors, because I knew them. So I totally agree with what you're saying, which is put yourself out there, volunteer, even if the thing you're volunteering for doesn't seem like it's directly related to your book yet. If it's in the author community, you're building that community that later you can do things that are directly related.
Right. And I think that this can also circle back to the earlier thing about swapping skills. Like if you put yourself out there offering to do a specific skill, let's say you're good at marketing, you're good in proofreading and so forth, you know, that can rebound on you in a way to swap skills, swap audiences. And I think that, you know, something like with I co-organized an anthology, a women's fiction anthology last year, and that from that, you know, you make connections, you form relationships. I ended up speaking at a university in Italy because of someone I met through the anthology. So it's also a way to network, even if it's not a huge moneymaker for anybody. It's a way to forge connections.
Yeah, even volunteering with like the associations, right? So like I mentioned Women's Fiction Writers Association earlier, and there's lots of different genre associations or local associations. That's a way that you meet people, but it's also a way that you develop skills. It's also a great opportunity, right? You volunteer. I think I saw a while back that WFWA, for example, was looking for help with their social media. So you volunteer to do the social media for a writers association. Not only do you meet people, but you learn how to do something that maybe you weren't actually already able to do, and you're going to learn on the fly in a, you know, kind of a fun environment. And now you have that skill. So now you can swap that skill. Now you can use that skill in your own writing, and you've built those contacts. So it's kind of a win-win. So I would say don't hesitate to volunteer for things that maybe it's not your expertise yet, especially if it's with associations, local writers groups, etc. Like, it's a way to build expertise. You don't have to be perfect at something in order to learn it as you go.
Yeah, 100%. It's just about, you know, taking that risk. And I think that if you're listening to this show, you're probably someone who's interested in writing, interested in getting your words out there. And just being a writer is great. Like just being open to putting your stuff out there and, you know, for someone else to read, for, you know, for someone to buy and read, that's a scary thing. So there's lots of firsts involved in something like that. So don't underestimate the value of just trying something new and putting yourself out there. I had never co-organized an anthology, but I learned about it now, and now I know it. And if I want to do it again, I can.
Yeah, and so we've got a couple of resources that we're recommending this month for this episode. The first is, Paulette, you have a great blog post about self-publishing tasks you should not pay for. I love that. You're very explicit. Paulette's opinion,
Yeah,
these four, don't do it.
Yeah, I got lots of opinions. Y'all. So this is, it's a great blog, and it just talks about 4 things I think you shouldn't pay for. We've covered a bunch of them today on the show. And my bias, yes. My opinion, yes. So if you want to read about those, pop over to the blog. I have a burning dollar bill, so I'm definitely passionate about these. I feel are things you shouldn't be paying for, and you can put your money better elsewhere.
And also on the episode page, which you can find on our website, bestofbookmarketing.com, you'll be able to find my download where I will recommend my recommendations for author platform on a budget, including how to do it for $20 a year. So you'll find that download on the website, as well as the link to Paulette's article, as well as the link to Paulette's books that she talked about if you're looking for that. So just check it out at bestofbookmarketing.com.
Yes, so we got our question in the chat here. What is the URL, Paulette? So the URL of my website is paulettestout.com, paulettestout.com/blog. And if you go to the episode page on the Best of Book Marketing website, there'll be links there directly. So you can check that out too.
Yeah. And we will stick a link on the YouTube recording as well right after this so that you can get it right away.
Awesome.
I think. Well, thank you. Your turn, Paulette.
Okay, my turn. Thanks to everyone who listened live today and in the chat. That's always fun to see. You're always great to answer questions there. Look for the resources. Come to the show. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast journey. And hopefully you learned a few things today about how to publish a book on a budget.
And if you thought it was useful, please do tell your writer friends. We do this to help other writers, so we want to get the word out about this podcast. It's still fairly new, like we said. We have a website that you can send people to. This same episode is both video and it's going to be a podcast audio episode. So please do share with your friends. That helps us a lot. And reviews help us a lot on the podcast platforms. If you could take 5 minutes and give us some stars, that really helps a lot. 1-line reviews, helpful, not helpful, whatever you want to say, very, very valuable.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
See ya.